Hi, how are you? I hope you're well. This side it's a weekend and it's sunny, it's lovely. My name is Bigaba Joan. I work with Vine Pharmaceuticals Limited. Vine Pharmaceuticals Limited is the leading referral pharmacy in Uganda. Vine Pharmaceuticals gives value with values. So yeah, I'm so glad to be able to present to you this topic. So today the topic is mainly centered around men and ladies. If you have a dad, if you have a brother, if you have, can I say, a son, if you have a man in your life, could be a dad, an elder brother, and or a friend, a boyfriend, a husband. This is an amazing video that they could learn from, that they can have a better life with. So today we're looking at the prostate. So what is the prostate? I know where is it located? I've asked a number of people, and some people, when they tell you, some people confuse the testicles for the prostate. So a number of people are confused about where the prostate is, what it does, why is it important, why is it that some people have surgery and remove it, what's the disadvantage of having the surgery, and all those things. And so is there a disease called prostate, or it's another disease? Is prostate enlargement, prostate cancer, and all these things? So today I'm very honored to be able to present to you this. So if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Before you go ahead, please subscribe, and yeah, let's go. So the prostate. So the prostate is a small walnut-sized. It's a walnut-sized gland. So it's the size of a walnut. And where is it located? It is just below the bladder. The bladder is that storage area for urine. So it's just below the bladder in a man, and it surrounds the urethra. So it's just below the bladder and it surrounds the urethra. So you find the urethra is the tube that moves urine out of the bladder and also moves semen out of the ejaculatory duct to the outside part of the body. So the semen, I'm imagining someone is having intercourse with their wife, the semen will go there, then the urine will go where it's supposed to go. So it's just the urethra is that tube, the exit strategy. Wow, interesting, the exit strategy. So I like to look at the prostate. So yeah, that's the prostate. Yeah. So so why the prostate? Why is it important? The prostate does a number of functions. The prostate is responsible for a number of functions. I'll just say them. A number, I don't mean like a million, but a number. But those functions, they could be a few, but they are worth millions more. So the prostate will, first of all, nourish the sperm. It nourishes the sperms, then it activates the sperm, and then also it protects the sperm from being destroyed by the acidic environment in the vagina. The vagina is acidic to prevent infection and all the other things. So when the sperm is released into the vagina, before the sperm can go up through the cervix, go up for fertilization to take place, it has to pass through that hostile environment that's a bit acidic, called the vagina. Okay, so yeah, so that is the those are the functions. So the prostate will it protects the sperm, it nourishes the sperm, and it activates the sperm, as we shall see as we go on. Yes. So then so let us go to what's the relationship between the prostate and ejaculation. What's the relationship between the prostate and urination? So let's start with ejaculation. So the prostate so we have the testicles in a man. So what you see outside your body is the testicles. Okay, the ball sac. So inside the testicles, the sperm cells are made. So the sperm cells will travel through the vas deferens and go to and connect to the ejaculatory duct. But then, so also the prostate and the seminal vesicles will produce their own fluids. The prostate will produce its thin milky-like fluid. Then the seminal vesicles will also produce this fluid. Then this fluid will join the sperm cells in the ejaculatory duct. So when the fluid that's coming from the prostate and the seminal vessels actually bathes the sperm cells, like it covers the sperm cells, and that's what we call semen that's later ejaculated. Yeah, so that's what the prostate does. So the prostate, so that's its relationship with ejaculation. So it will form part of the semen. So it will bathe the sperm cells and then they're ejected out. So the number one function of the prostate, I said that it will nourish the sperms. It bathes the sperms, feeds the sperms, but also that fluid that it produces. But also that fluid is a bit alkaline. It will protect the sperm from being destroyed. But then also we need the sperm to be released from that fluid after it has encountered the acidic environment. We need the sperm to be released. So what the prostate has, the prostate contains a protein called the protein-specific antigen. It's a protein molecule called protein-specific antigen. What's the function of the protein-specific antigen? The prostate-specific antigen will liquefy. Remember, this thing has bathed the sperms. It's part of semen. It's a bit thicker. I think for those that have had intercourse, they know it's a bit thicker than normal. But then we need to liquefy it in order to release the sperm cells. So what does prostate-specific antigen does? It liquefies the semen and makes sure the sperms are released to be able to go to the ovum in the woman to fertilize the woman, and then you have fruit, which is a child. So the prostate has a prostate-specific antigen that what we call now activating the sperm cell, because it will liquefy the semen and make sure the sperm cell is released to go towards the ovum and fertilize the egg. And it's amazing. If you're watching this and you're human, you're the sperm that won. The sperm, the man releases lots and lots of sperms, but you're the one out of millions, 2 million of sperms that really like there are very many sperms, millions of sperms. You're the one that won that battle that day, and then you fertilization took place. So that's its relation with ejaculation and fertility. Then the prostate, what happens is that since the prostate surrounds that tube called the urethra, urine comes from the bladder. Immediately below the bladder, we have that prostate that's surrounding the urethra. So urine will pass through in between, because the urethra passes through the prostate. The urethra passes through the prostate. So urine will pass through the prostate and to go outside. So usually the symptoms we see when the prostate enlarges, they disturb the flow of urine because urine has to pass through the prostate, through the tube that's in the prostate to go outside the body. So there are mainly three conditions that affect the prostate. We have prostatitis, which is inflammation of the prostate, and we have benign prostate hypertrophy, which is the video that I'm doing today. We shall look at prostatitis. Then the third one is prostate cancer, which we shall look at in subsequent videos. But for this video specifically, we are looking at benign prostate hypertrophy. So when you're born, you have when you're born at birth, your prostate is the size of a pea. Then by the time you finish puberty, your prostate is the size of a walnut. And then when you reach 30 years of age, the prostate begins to grow again. Now this other second phase of growth, the one that occurs at 30, is the one that eventually leads to prostate enlargement or benign prostate hyperplasia. So what causes the growth of the prostate? So why do we call it benign prostate hyperplasia? I mean, we could call it anything else. So what causes a benign prostate hypertrophy? Hyperplasia, prostate enlargement. What happens is that 30 years, the prostate begins growing again. And what fuels that growth? So what causes the growth of the prostate? It is controlled by hormones, and the chief male hormone is testosterone, and incidentally it also plays a role in prostate growth and development. Even at puberty, it's the testosterone that was helping your prostate to grow, because you need the prostate to grow in order for you to have a fertility taking place and being able to impregnate your wife. So so then we go ahead and then look at, so we've seen that the prostate at 30 years, it will begin growing again. So what causes it? I've said that it's a hormone dependent phenomenon. So we have, the men have a hormone, also as ladies have it, but not to that extent. The men have the chief male hormone, the primary male hormone is called testosterone. Now, testosterone, when testosterone is released, testosterone is mainly produced by the testicles. 90% of testosterone is produced by the testicles, and then the other percent, the remaining testosterone, is produced by the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are located, what can I say? The adrenal glands are located just on top of the kidneys. So this will release testosterone hormone, so that it will be the testicles and the adrenal glands that produce testosterone. So when this testosterone is produced and it goes into the body, it gets converted to another more potent form called dihydrotestosterone. Now, this dihydrotestosterone, abbreviated as DHT, it attaches to the specific sites on the prostate and causes rapid multiplication of the cells of the prostate. When another term for rapid multiplication of cells is called hyperplasia. Are we together? So another term for rapid multiplication of cells is called hyperplasia. So this DHT fuels the growth. When it attaches to those specific sites, it will fuel the growth and multiplication of the cells, which we call hyperplasia. Now, this multiplication is non-cancerous and it's occurring in the process, and that's the name benign. Benign meaning non-cancerous, prostatic because the cells that are being affected are in the prostate. Hyperplasia means rapid multiplication of cells in the prostate. Hallelujah. So it's really not a scientific term. It really means non-cancerous multiplication of cells in the prostate. So it's fueled by the hormone that a man has. So as a man grows older, he will have prostate enlargement. So because the second phase of growth begins at 30 years, for some of them it is more controlled, so the symptoms come much later in life. Other men, the symptoms come much earlier. So it's better to start taking care of your prostate health, especially if you're 30 years and above. You're not too young. I won't say my age, but when you're 30 years and above, so if we went to school together, if you're 30 years and above, you need to start taking caution, because the second phase of growth of the prostate has started. For some men, because of a number of factors, maybe lifestyle, obesity, and all those things, the prostate enlargement symptoms will come much faster than other people. But the second phase of growth begins at 30 years. So then, that's basically what happens with BPH. So when the cells multiply, it will lead to increased tissue, increased. So you see, cells form tissues form organs form systems, and you get it. So it is a cell forming a tissue, which is muscles, and then organs, then systems. That's how the body operates. So when you have rapid multiplication of cells of the prostate, what happens is that you have a lot of muscle and other things being formed in the prostate. So what ends up happening is that the prostate will grow. Mainly, it starts growing inwards, and there is a zone that's near it. The prostate is made of very many zones, and one of the zones that are really affected, that rapidly multiply and have a lot of tissue growth, is the transition zone, which is near to the urethra. So what happens, that muscles around that area become thick. They take a grip on the urethra, which is the tube of urine, and then you have a narrowed urethra because the prostate is enlarging inwards. So you will have a narrowed urethra. So I let me liken it to a donut. You know when a donut has a big hole, and then also when you see a donut has grown, and then the hole is really narrow. So when it's really narrow, you have to force maybe your finger to pass through, or it's really this hole through which urine is supposed to pass. The hole through which anything is supposed to pass is really narrow. So what happens is the first symptom someone gets when they get prostate enlargement are are obstruction symptoms. So there are obstruction symptoms. So the obstruction symptoms include a straining to begin, because the urethra has narrowed. Now the blood, there is that straining at the beginning of urine. You get that? There is that straining at the beginning of urine, because the pathway where urine is supposed to pass, and some of them even make that sound when they're trying to pass urine. And another thing is that the stream of urine becomes weaker. For the men, I know I have a young boy, my son. When they're urinating, they really urinate. They target the toilet hole. They even have competitions of who can urinate the furthest. But you realize that as you grow, as your prostate is growing, it's affecting the length at which you're urinating. So it disturbs your stream of urine. So you'll find that older you are, some of the men, it's a bit embarrassing. They start urinating on themselves and things like that. So how does, imagine, a tap is connected to a pipe, and you try to block. So that's what happens with obstruction. You try to block the outlet. So what will end up happening, the water will come less than it's supposed to be. So that's what happens. The stream of urine becomes less, and it's no longer projected. So you find some of them come from the urinals when the urine has splashed on like the shoes or on the trouser and things like that. Another symptom is dribbling. You try to get a straw and try to press. For example, if you're taking soda and then you try to press the straw, I used to play that game, and then you're trying to blow the soda, you'll find that the things that are coming are dribbles. They are droplets. They are droplets that are coming. So a dribbling of urine also occurs. So some of the symptoms of obstruction is you have to strain in order to push the urine out. So urinating will take a bit longer. Then also the stream of urine becomes weak, and then there is what we call then there is dribbling of urine, and also the bladder doesn't completely empty because the thing is so narrow. So you'll find residue of urine, and here it is, the bladder will not completely empty when there is urine left. Now a man normally is not supposed to get bladder infections. If you're a man and you're getting bladder infections, it means that you keep a lot of urine within the bladder. That means either you have incomplete emptying of the bladder, which is a symptom of prostate enlargement, or you've gotten used to the habit of keeping urine within the bladder. So that causes bladder infection because you're storing a lot of residue urine, and it's a good breeding ground. So men kind of get that recurrent urinary tract infection because of incomplete emptying of the bladder. So those are signs that are due to obstruction of the bladder. So then, because of that, because the bladder is obstructed, now because the urethra is obstructed or narrow, the bladder has to use a lot of energy to push urine through the urethra. So you'll find that the obstruction to the flow of the blood, to the flow of urine, will lead to the bladder being overactive. So what happens that the bladder muscles now will have to thicken, because imagine, I'll liken it to someone going to gym. So when you have a small weight, it's easy. But then the more weights you carry, you find that your muscles keep growing in order to accumulate that weight that you're carrying. Those who want six packs per year. So you get the more weight you add on, the more your muscles form, because the muscles have to adapt to you being able to carry that weight. So that's what happens to the bladder. Because now the bladder has to work extra hard, it gets muscles. So it becomes thick and very sensitive. So what's the effect of the thickened and sensitive muscles? The muscles in the bladder that become thick and sensitive are called detrusor muscles. They are the flow of the bladder. So what happens is that because of sensitivity, you find that if you used to keep like maybe 2 liters of urine, oh my god, half a liter of urine, you find that the capacity can reduce up to 300 mils because of too much sensitivity. Any urine that comes in wants to get out because of that too much activity on the bladder and sensitivity. Because of that, it's caused by the obstruction. So you find the first symptoms are obstruction symptoms, then that later on you get bladder symptoms because of hyperactivity. So then you'll find that you'll have frequent urination because your bladder becomes too sensitive. The bladder flow becomes too sensitive. Then also you'll find that you have frequent urination during the day and at night. So you'll have nocturia. Then you'll have urgency because the more the bladder becomes thickened and more sensitive, the more muscles thicken, the space in the bladder will reduce. So that means that when the urine comes, it has come. You have to urinate it, and also the blood, they become at some, the opening will later become weak. And that when the urine comes, it has to come. Like you're like, oh my god, or urinating yourself. You've seen that. You find that older men tend to have that effect a lot, and some of them have that smell of urine because of that. So then also another important thing so you'll have also the frequent UTIs and all those things. So another symptom of so we've looked at the obstruction symptoms and then the symptoms because of the bladder now being affected, because of the bladder becoming thickened and sensitive. So then we go ahead and look at, so what happens? What do we do? After that, so these are the symptoms. So I have an acronym for them. I got it from one of the people I was training, which is called FunWise. You have frequent urination, urgency to urinate, nocturia, which is urinating at night, W, wise, which is weak stream of urine, E, intermittency, because of I is intermittency because of obstruction. You start to urinate, you stop, you start, you stop, you stop. S, you have straining at the beginning of urine. Then E is empty, which is a complete emptying of the bladder. Those are the cardinal symptoms. There is another symptom that is rarely talked about that affects men who have prostate enlargement. Now, beside the prostate, there is a muscle, erectogenic nerves. Now, any slight enlargement will disturb the nerve, and therefore you'll have issues getting and maintaining an erection. So erectile dysfunction is a very common sign in people who have prostate enlargement, because any slight enlargement will affect the erectogenic nerve. Okay, so then, so who are the people who usually get it? I said it starts from 30 years. By the time someone is 50, 60 years, you have 60% of them have prostate enlargement active and 40% experiencing symptoms. Just not from age 30 you are. By the time someone is 80, they have 90% of them have prostate enlargement symptoms, BPH symptoms. And I like saying, as long as a man lives long enough, which is true, they will experience prostate enlargement symptoms because the prostate has to keep growing. So how do they test it? They usually diagnose using PSA tests. What the PSA does, like I told you, the PSA is supposed to liquefy the semen, but then some of it seeps into blood. So what we are checking for PSA is usually you're checking for the what can I call it, the activity of the prostate. When you have prostate enlargement, prostate cancer, prostatitis, usually there is too much prostate activity and a lot of PSA is being produced. So when you have more PSA than it is according to your age, then yeah, you have that. I'm going to give you a table of PSA according to age. Yeah. So that is what are some of the complications of prostate enlargement. If you get those, if you don't try to prevent yourself from, if you're 30 years and above and you're thinking you will start at 70, we have some supplements that just delay the progression, some that treat symptoms. The earlier you manage the symptoms, the better. So we have some supplements that will help with that. You can visit any Vine Pharmacy outlet or watch subsequent videos. You'll be able to get the supplements that will help. But if you don't do that, so this is what happens. You will have complete retention of urine. which is not good. When you have complete retention of urine, because urine now become toxic at will. When you're not letting it out, you're building up toxins, your kidneys eventually gets affected, your bladder, then your kidneys, because the urine has to now flow back, and it causes issues. Overall, general health will get damaged. So what they do is that you get catheterization, like you move with a catheter for the rest of your life if you don't treat it. So the other thing is you get recurrent urinary tract infections whenever treating UTIs. Then another thing is that for bladder stones, you develop bladder stones because the bladder doesn't completely empty. Then also kidney damage and kidney stones. So it's rare for BPH to kill you. BPH won't kill you unless you get maybe those bad complications, for example, to do with the kidneys. But it is embarrassing. Really, it's embarrassing for a grown man to go to the toilet and then maybe have a patch of urine on them. It's embarrassing for someone to be like, but you guys, how do you use the toilet, and not aim at the hole in the toilet? And you're a grown man and they're talking about you when it's you. Like, you're like, hey, men leave the toilet a bit messy because you couldn't aim properly. It's embarrassing. It will also it will affect your fertility because it affects your erection. It will affect your quality of life, and it affects your esteem. So thank you so much. For more information, I've written a book called Let Thy Food Be Thy Medicine, a very good book that looks at the role of food as supplements in prevention and curative care. Thank you so much. Visit any Vine pharmaceutical outlet. You'll have more and more of this information. Bye bye.